Okomoga was a king of immeasurable strength and unparalleled courage. His name echoed across every village, through every forest and valley, and was known by both friend and foe. He was the ruler of the greatest kingdom in the land, a kingdom built from countless villages that he had conquered in battle. His power was such that men trembled at his name, and armies quivered at the thought of facing him. His reign was absolute, and no one dared challenge him. Yet, for all his conquest and power, there was one thing Okomoga could not claim: he was childless. Okomoga had married 4 wives, each one more beautiful than the last. He had hoped that one of them would bear him an heir, someone who could carry on his legacy, someone to inherit his vast empire. But none had given him the child he so desperately desired. His disappointment grew with each passing year, and the whispers of his barren household began to spread throughout the kingdom. He sought counsel from the wisest of advisors and the most powerful sorcerers from every corner of the land. His courtiers brought in witch doctors from villages far and wide, each one claiming to have the solution to his predicament. Yet, no matter what rituals they performed or what potions they brewed, the king remained without an heir. The years wore on, and Okomoga grew weary. His once youthful face now bore the marks of age, the lines on his forehead deepening with the weight of his frustration. He had ruled for decades, but the thought of leaving his kingdom without a successor tormented him. He could not bear the thought of his empire falling into disarray upon his death. One fateful day, as Okomoga sat alone in his royal chambers, a figure appeared at his door. The man was unlike any other the king had seen before. He was dressed in a tattered cloak, his face obscured by a hood. His presence was unannounced, and yet the guards did not question him. There was an aura about him, something mysterious and commanding, that demanded respect. The man approached Okomoga and, without saying a word, bowed his head in reverence. Okomoga, though taken aback, gestured for him to speak. "You seek a child, King Okomoga," the man said in a voice that resonated with power. "But the child you seek is not a gift to be found in the usual ways." Okomoga's eyes narrowed, his interest piqued. "Who are you?" he demanded. "I am a witch doctor," the man replied. "But I am no ordinary healer. I come from the old ways, the forgotten ways, and I know the source of your trouble." Okomoga leaned forward. "What do you know of my plight?" he asked. The witch doctor took a deep breath, his eyes glinting with an ancient wisdom. "Your childlessness is not a matter of fate or coincidence. It is a curse, a punishment for a sin you committed long ago." The king's heart skipped a beat. "A curse," he echoed, disbelief in his voice. "What are you talking about?" The witch doctor stepped closer, his eyes piercing through the king's soul. "Many years ago, when you were still a young prince, you went hunting in the woods. During your journey, you encountered a young maiden, an orphan girl. You took her against her will, and in your arrogance and cruelty, you ravished her without remorse." Okomoga's face flushed with anger and shame. He had long buried the memory of that day, but now, it resurfaced with painful clarity. The girl had been nothing more than a momentary indulgence, a fleeting desire satisfied in the heat of passion. He had not thought of her sins, nor had he cared for the consequences of his actions. After all, he was a prince, and he could do as he pleased. The witch doctor continued, "The girl was left to suffer in silence. She gave birth to a child, a daughter. But the pain she endured during labor was so great that she cursed you with her dying breath. She swore that you would never hear the sound of a child in your house, not until you acknowledged your sin and cared for the child you had abandoned. Okomoga's mind reeled. He had not known the girl had died, nor had he ever considered the possibility that she had borne a child. The witch doctor's words struck him like a thunderclap. The old man's voice softened. The child you fathered is still alive, though she is not without suffering. She was born blind, and her life has been one of hardship. She lives with an old midwife in a distant village, far from the kingdom you built. But if you wish to end your curse, you must seek her out, acknowledge her as your daughter, and care for her as you would any child of your own. Okomoga felt a surge of emotions. Guilt, anger, regret, and something else, something that made his heart ache. He had been foolish, blinded by his pride and arrogance. Now, it seemed, the consequences of his actions had come back to haunt him. If he wished to have an heir, he would need to face the past he had long tried to forget. Without a word, Okomoga stood up. "I will find her," he said, his voice resolute. "Where is she?" The witch doctor nodded. "Follow the river to the north, beyond the forest. There, you will find the village where she lives. But be warned, the journey will not be easy. The girl is blind, but her heart is pure. It will take more than blood to earn her trust." With that, the witch doctor vanished into the night, leaving Okomoga to contemplate the path ahead. For weeks, Okomoga traveled, his heart heavy with the weight of his past. He journeyed through dense forests, crossed treacherous rivers, and climbed rugged mountains, all the while thinking of the daughter he had abandoned. His thoughts were consumed by guilt, but also by an overwhelming desire to make things right. Finally, after many days, he arrived at the village where the girl was said to live. It was a humble place, far from the grandeur of his kingdom, nestled between hills and fields of wildflowers. The people here were simple, living in harmony with the land, their lives untouched by the luxuries Okomoga had grown accustomed to. He made his way to the home of the old midwife. The woman was frail and bent with age, but her eyes were sharp, and she regarded the king with a knowing gaze. "You have come for her," the old woman said, her voice soft but firm. "You are her father, aren't you?" Okomoga nodded, his throat tight with emotion. "I am." The midwife led him to a small, humble dwelling at the edge of the village, where a young girl sat by a fire. She was beautiful, despite her blindness, with long, dark hair and an air of quiet strength. Okomoga felt his heart twist as he looked at her. She was the child he had abandoned, the one he had never known. The girl turned her head as if sensing his presence. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice gentle but filled with an unspoken question. "I am your father," Okomoga said, his voice breaking with the weight of the truth. "I am the one who wronged you." She studied him for a moment, as if deciding whether to trust him. Then, slowly, she reached out and touched his hand, her fingers brushing against his calloused skin. "You are the king," she said softly. "I was a fool," Okomoga replied. "I was a young man who did not understand the consequences of my actions. But I have come to seek your forgiveness, and to offer you what I should have given you long ago." The girl, whose name was Akira, remained silent for a long while, her face unreadable. Finally, she spoke. "I have known of you for a long time, but I did not seek revenge. I only wanted to know who you were, and why you left me." Okomoga dropped to his knees before her. "I am sorry. I have failed you in every way." Akira placed her hand on his head, and for the first time in years, Okomoga felt a sense of peace wash over him. The curse was lifting. Word of the king's journey spread through the kingdom, and the people began to speak of Akira, the blind daughter of Okamoga. As the king took her back to his palace, he vowed to make her his heir, to raise her as his own, and to make amends for the pain he had caused. In time, Akira grew into a strong and wise ruler, a leader in her own right. Her wisdom, coupled with her courage, made her beloved by the people. Okamoga, now older and wiser, took great pride in his daughter's rule, knowing that she would lead the kingdom with a heart full of justice. Together, they ruled the land, father and daughter, bringing peace and prosperity to the kingdom. Akira, the blind girl who had once been abandoned, became a beacon of hope, and her love story with a true warrior who fought by her side became legend. The curse was broken, and the sound of children's laughter once again filled the halls of the royal palace. And so, Okamoga's empire thrived, not through power and conquest alone, but through redemption, love, and the restoration of what had once been lost.